Before the Pact, there were witches who healed, not conjurers, not architects of labyrinth, healers. Witches whose entire craft was built around using magic to cure, and they built something remarkable, a pair of bottles linked across any distance so that medicine could reach whoever needed it, wherever they were. Chapter 15 opens up with that history. And then, page by page, it shows us what it costs to reach back what was lost. What's up, everyone? Mel here, and today it's all about the story that is unfolding in chapter 15. Let's just go ahead and jump into it. Let's talk about the history the Pact erased. Let's start where chapter 15, basically, the manga page opens up, and it's with some narration. And I need you to understand why this moment matters, because if you've been with me since chapter 13, this is going to be the payoff that you've been waiting for. And then, of course, I love talking about the history of the Pact. Chapter 13 introduced us to the twin bottle. We saw Qifrey look at it and immediately recognized it as something significant, something rare, something connected to a world before the Pact. But we did not get the full picture of what it was or why it carried that kind of weight. Chapter 15 gives us that answer right at the top. This is the full circle moment of the twin bottle. Here's what we learned before the Pact. Healing craft existed. Witches who cast magic on the body, not to harm, but to cure. And among everything they built, one particular invention, a pair of bottles, each containing a small medallion that kept their contents evenly divided, no matter the distance between them. And between the bottles is what I mean when I say between them, a system of sharing medicine, a way to make sure a tonic reached someone in need wherever they were. And then the Pact came down. What did the Pact do? I'm just going to tell you straight out the back. There's an old saying that I like, and we like to use it even in business when we're talking about processes and operations and pieces of processes that may not be working. Listen, what the Pact did was threw the baby out with the bath water. That's basically what they did. They threw the baby out with the bath water, and I'm just going to continue. Magic must not be cast upon the body. That's what the Pact decided. The healing witches were the last to resist. And when they finally fell, they lost not just their practice, they lost their memories, everything they knew, everything they had built. It just totally erased. The twin bottle vanished with them. Now, here's what I want you to notice. This is not the backstory. This is a wound. The Pact did not just forbid healing magic, it erased the people who practice it. Their knowledge, their ingenuity, their very memory of what they had made, gone, just totally wiped away. And now we understand why Qifrey could not let that object go. It was not just a clue. It was the last physical trace of something the wise ones did not want anyone to find. That recognition happened in chapter 14. What chapter 15 does is show us exactly what he was willing to risk to use it. Now, this brings us right back to what he knew, what he didn't, and what he knows now. Let's talk about what Qifrey was actually doing in that tower, because chapter 14 ended with him in that tower holding Coco's ink pot. Chapter 15 picks up right there, and it picks up with some full weight of events that's going to unfold. And I want to be clear about something first. This is not a reckless move. Qifrey understood what the twin bottle is. He understood that the medallion inside was connected to whoever carried the other half of the other bottle. If he extracted that medallion and placed it inside a guidance orb, it would track back to the materials, to the place of crafting, more importantly, to the owner. One thread pulled carefully in the right direction, leading him down the road toward the Brimmed Cap. Listen, Qifrey, he knew the risk. He went in anyway. That tells you who Qifrey is. He got the medallion out, and then a bolt of lightning came through the wall. One word in Qifrey's reaction gives everything away. When the lightning hits, he doesn't say they found me. He says, they noticed already? That word, already, it tells us he expected they might sense something eventually. What he was not prepared for was how fast, how direct, and how physical. I'm going to tell you now, when I was reading this part of the story and what I know from the labyrinth, like the Brimmed Caps are showing up, like they're not waiting. They are definitely showing up. I'm telling you right now. The Brimmed Cap, the one with the eye on the hat, does not send a warning. He shows up, he floods the tower, and underwater magic does not work. Qifrey has no defense at this point. He loses the situation completely. And then, to close it out, the Brimmed Cap takes Coco's ink pot and crushes it. The ink pot has been part of this story since chapter 13. It belonged to Coco. It was tampered with. It became Qifrey's, one physical lead to the Brimmed Cap. And in this chapter, its role in the story ends at this point. The Brimmed Cap destroys it without hesitation. I mean, crushing it in his hand. This is not panic. This is a statement. I mean, crushes it. And Qifrey is left on the ground, soaking wet, numb. His hands and fingers are numb from what the water and the lightning did to him. And basically nothing. And he's looking up at the Brimmed Cap. I mean, look at this manga panel. The numbness matters because he does not let it show. So when the scene changes and he's back at the Atelier at breakfast, he didn't even let it show at breakfast with the girls that he had numbness in his hand, not in front of the girls at all. He goes outside later and he bites into a herb just trying to get the feeling back. He's managing a physical cost in secret, the same way he manages everything else, quietly, alone, while keeping up every appearance that he has, right? That's Qifrey for you. But here's what this chapter is really doing with that scene. What Qifrey walks away, basically, what Qifrey walks away understanding is this. The twin bottle was not just a tracer pointing him toward the Brimmed Cap. It is a two-way signal. The same connection he was trying to use to find them found him right back. This is what I love about this story. The Brimmed Caps are not waiting. They are very much ready for what it is they're getting ready to execute. And if you ask me, in some fashion, they are anxious. Any artifact tied to the Brimmed Caps, any clue, any piece of information he tries to use, the moment he reaches for it, they will know and they will come, and they are coming. And this chapter begins to suggest something even heavier than that. The Brimmed Caps are not hiding from Qifrey. They do not need to, because Coco is right there at his atelier. She's the reason they have no reason to run, in my opinion. Whatever they need her for, whatever purpose she serves in their plan, she is already within reach. They showed up in that tower, not a fear. That was a message, in my opinion. We know where you are. We're not afraid of you. Qifrey went into that tower thinking he was closing in. He came out understanding the distance between them was never as wide as he believed. How I describe the Brimmed Caps, they are fast, direct, and physical. Now, let's look at 3 people, 3 weights. Chapter 15 makes it such a strong closing chapter for the Twin Bottle arc. Yes, chapter 15 is a strong chapter, as it is the closing for, like I said, the Twin Bottle arc. While Qifrey is sitting at breakfast, managing all of that damage in silence, all of his pain. 2 other storylines are moving at the same time, and both of them are paying off threads. They go back chapters. Let's start with Coco and Agott, because this one goes all the way back to the consent of the crown. Agott pushed Coco, into taking the test before she was ready. Coco could have reported Agott to Qifrey to the watchful eye, but she didn't, not one word. And then on top of that, she took Agott's silk shoes, drew the seals herself, and then in this chapter, she returned them to Agott. Agott has been carrying that weight with her ever since. And the weight that Coco did not report her, she can't understand why Coco did not report her to Qifrey or to Ollie. She's been carrying a little bit of guilt and genuine confusion of not understanding, again, why Coco didn't report it. Why would Coco do that? This is what Agott is trying to figure out. Why would she keep that to herself? So in chapter 15, she finally asks, and what Coco tells her is this. The fear that day was real for Coco. The loneliness was real, but the choice to walk to the base of the Tartah range and try anyway, that came from within Coco herself. She explains that. She owned that moment for herself. She was not letting Agott off the hook. She was saying that experience was hers alone, and she claimed it. And she was successful because of that. This is the meaningful distinction that I like when it comes to Coco. So it does not erase what Agott did. It reframes what Coco took from it. The fact that this conversation is finally happening with the return of Agott's shoes, right? right there between them in a full circle moment for everything. The consent of the crown set the motion, basically. Before Agott responded, something happens to Coco. Coco collapses. The cause is not a mystery. Days of studying through the night, no rest, a body that finally ran out of room to keep pushing. Yes, Coco has been working on her sigils, working on becoming better at drawing, right? The consequence is immediate because of this, because Coco has been doing what I call burning the midnight oil. Coco's on the floor, fever climbing, and a conversation that needed to happen still sitting unfinished. And then there's a small moment that I do not want us to miss as readers of the manga, and if you're anime only listening at this, because it is the only warmth in an otherwise very heavy chapter. When Qifrey steps outside to get the herb and get some feeling back in his hand, he talks to the little brush buddy on his shoulder. And in that moment, the man who had been carrying so much alone, he gives the brush buddy a name, Puff Puff. It is a small thing, but it's still, something real about Qifrey, or it tells us something real about Qifrey. Even in the middle of everything he's managing, there's still some warmth in there, and that's a good thing. So Agott flies out toward Qifrey, though. She puts on her silk shoes that Coco gave back to her with the fresh sigil and everything on it, and she flies out to Qifrey full speed, and she does that to find Qifrey. Whatever complicated feelings existed between Coco and Agott, those two, she did not hesitate to go find Qifrey when Coco collapsed on the ground. This tells you everything about where she is now and how she is beginning to warm up to Coco. So let's talk a little bit about Tartah and the question that has been building since chapter, 13, when Qifrey, we know, did something to Mr. No Noah's memory. And Tartah at this point, even in chapter um, 15, is still holding on to this and realizing that something was strange. And again, Qifrey rushes Coco to call on his broom, but barely knows the town. So he knows the island, but he doesn't know where everything is on the island. And in that moment, he runs into Tartah on the street. The story makes it a very deliberate choice, in my opinion, because Tartah he still needs answers from Qifrey. And Tartah is the one who helps Qifrey find the hospital. He knows a shortcut through some alleys. He runs ahead and he gets Qifrey to the hospital carrying Coco. And if you think back, let's think back to chapter 13. Tartah was watching from upstairs, seeing the flash of light, not being able to let go of that moment. More importantly, the moment that follows, the accumulation of what happens when he realizes that his grandfather doesn't remember the light at all. So these chapters have been hitting on that ever since that moment. And now he is the one running beside Qifrey through the streets of Call, making himself useful and getting closer. Standing outside the hospital, Qifrey tells him that he has sharp eyes. Yes, this is what he says to Tartah, that he pays closer attention to things than most people. Think about who is saying that. A man who has spent this entire chapter watching, analyzing, and hiding his own damage, recognizing exactly the same quality in someone else. That observation is not a compliment, in my opinion. It is an acknowledgement. It may be the first quiet alarm Qifrey has let himself feel about how much Tartah has already put together, because Tartah is still catching his breath at the moment in this particular scene. He turns to him and says, "There's something he needs to ask." So Tartah's not letting this question go. And then, of course, the chapter ends here. By now, you have a sense of what Tartah suspects and what he's going to ask. He's not asking because he does not know. He's asking because he's carried the question long enough, and he's finally standing in front of the right person, and that person is Qifrey. So he needs to ask Qifrey the question, because Qifrey was the only other person up there with Mr. Noah. So the twin brother arc closes at that moment, not with answers, but with a confrontation that's been building since chapter 13. Now, finally arriving at its door. Chapter 15 does what the best closing chapters of an arc do. It does not wrap things completely up. It opens the next door. This is why we love stories. The twin bottle is gone. The ink pot is gone. The medallion is gone. Qifrey's plan failed, and his hands are still numb from what it cost him. Coco, at this point, is in a hospital bed. The conversation between her and Agott is still unfinished. And Tartah is standing outside in the dark, ready to finally say out loud what he's been holding since chapter 13. Now, the Pact erased the healing witches and everything they built, but it did not erase the need for what they offered. And chapter 15 shows us quietly through 3 separate storylines, all paying off at once. People still, they're reaching towards something, and all of them paying for it in ways they didn't plan for. This story is an accumulation. Again, every chapter is an accumulation of the story unfolding. Yes, let's remember that every chapter is building towards something, and chapter 15 is where you start to feel how much has already been stacked. If you enjoyed this analysis, this recap, whatever you want to call it, do not forget to like, subscribe, and comment for more manga coverage on Witch Hat Atelier. And let me know in the comments, how far ahead of Qifrey do you think the Brimmed Caps actually are? If you made it to this end of this video, thanks for watching.